Do I have time, any more time? Okay, okay, one more quick question. Mr. Cameron, 6 witnesses threatened. How were they threatened? And who threatened them?
I'll give you an example of a couple of the witnesses. One witness was a woman who's a steno for a military contractor who had been involved in discussions when it appears material was being moved from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base to Area 51. She was in on these meetings, and she had agreed to go on camera with George Knapp. After this story started to break in 1989, she was visited by 2 officers the same day she was going to go on camera, and they said, "We just want to remind you, you have a security clearance, you're still under oath. We know that you and your daughter travel back and forth between Las Vegas and Los Angeles. There's a lot of desert out there. We would not want to have something happen in the desert." George Knapp told me personally, this woman is so scared that 20 years later she still will not talk about it. They had witnesses at Nellis Air Force Base, the golf instructor at Nellis Air Force Base, the golf pro, the guy who did the taxes for the generals. They had got to know all the generals and had been told the stories about the fact that the crafts were at Area 51. This is all for true. One of the key witnesses is a guy by the name of Alfred O'Donnell, who the Appropriations Committee at Congress actually tried to talk to this guy. He was one of the highest ranking people at Area 51. George Knapp had a number of witnesses, and he figured that he wanted to track down this Alfred O'Donnell. Figured if anybody knew if the Area 51 crash saucer stories were true, it would be Alfred O'Donnell. He got to know him, got to be sort of friends. And he said he basically stalked this guy because this guy would know, and basically went to the guy's house. He's an expert on nuclear weapons from 1947 on, wired a lot of the first nuclear weapons, and he was showing him test site photographs from the nuclear stuff, and then he closed the book. He said, "You didn't come here to talk about that, did you?" And George said, "No, I didn't come here to talk about that." He said, "You came here to talk about UFOs, didn't you?" And George said, "Yeah, that's why I'd like to know about it." And he said, well, and George said it took 6 months to get this guy to talk, and the guy, bit by piece, he wasn't allowed to tape, he wasn't allowed to take notes, and in the end, he basically said, "Yes, it's true. Area 51, we have the saucers there," and George said, "Weren't you afraid that there would be, the story would get out?" He said, "No, we were afraid it would get out." He said, "What, you mean you had an alien that came all this way, you kept it captive?" He said, we didn't know what to do with it. We couldn't communicate with it." That is one of the highest level guys at the Area 51 site, is still alive, and a man who knows the whole story.